Hi, I'm Ali Patterson. On this episode of Future Banking, we speak with Nationwide and Cisco about video interactions. We also speak again with BBVA about their omni-channel strategy. But first, we head over to Confirmit to talk about recognizing customer feedback. So I've come to speak to Claire from Confirmit about voice of the customer and the user experience. What are some of the main challenges that we're seeing in the financial service market today?
There's always a significant number of challenges, and I think the key one for me is around customer expectation. Expectations have always been high, but I do believe currently, because of people's experiences with other industries, their expectations have risen even higher, and when they turn to their bank or their financial institution, they're looking for that same level of customer experience that they receive from the Ritz-Carltons, the Apples, the John Lewises of this world.
Claire highlighted that the finance industry can learn from other verticals. I'm curious about how this can be applied into the branch. So I've come to Nationwide to speak with Tony Prestage about innovation within the branch. Let's talk a little bit around Nationwide now. What was the genesis really of this innovative project and the ethos behind it?
There were a few things that we wanted to work through. The first is we have a physical branch network of about 700 branches in the UK, and we were struggling to cope with capacity. We had more business demand than we were able to fulfill. And it wasn't that we didn't have enough sites, it was that your ability to get expert resources in investment planning or mortgage advice or banking products is one of those things that's very hard to provision on an efficient basis across 700 stores, when actually you will inevitably end up with inefficiency and downtime. So what we were trying to look at is how did we bring together the dimensions of improved service, access to expertise and efficiency at the same time. And we had an opportunity to see an institution in Canada, not in banking, but in the health sector. And what we started to see in Canada was that they were bringing GP to people in the community, particularly when they've got the tyranny of distance. So people who were in parts of far-flung Canada who needed access to expert advice from medics were struggling to access it. And we took that idea and came back and said, well, why can't we do the same in financial services? How do we take 700 branches but increase their ability to advise, bring expertise and improve servicing through the use of new technology?
That all sounded great, but I had to see for myself how Nationwide Now was compared to a real person. So this is Nationwide Now?
Yeah. Have you ever used anything like this before?
Only Skype to sort of speak across, and you're looking right at me as well.
Yeah, well, I'm looking more towards the camera.
So what happens? So you have a customer who comes in and you're sort of alerted as a mortgage advisor?
Yeah, so we've got a computer system called Office Communicator, which is, I suppose, a little bit like MSN. So the branch will send us a message saying that they're going to bring the customer into the room. The customer comes in, sits down, we'll dial through and then introduce ourselves. And for the first minute or two, a customer might find it a tiny bit strange, but we'll introduce the systems, just explain that obviously you can see me on the screen, there's a computer to the side of you, we can screen share. I think customers quite like that because they can see the full application go through from start to finish on the screen, so it makes it a bit more interactive. Obviously any paperwork we need the customers to sign or take away with them, we send to the printer that's in the room as well. And there's also a scanner attached, so any payslips that we need to look at, the customer can put on the scanner, get them scanned straight over to our desktop so we can get them popped onto the mortgage application. So I think with regards to timescales, the application from start to finish is exactly the same as a face-to-face in-branch consultant. It all works quite seamlessly with having all the technology there in one place.
I was very impressed with the seamless technology. So I headed over to Cisco to talk about their omni-channel offerings.
It's now up to the customers when they want to talk to the advisor rather than the bank mandating when the customer can talk to the advisor. That's the key difference. So A, you stop the customer leakage, and B, you provide an absolutely fully comprehensive service to the customer when they want to talk to the advisor. It's only in branch at the moment, but I think a lot of organisations will want to get to the home. I think that's the next generation of this. That's what we're working on in terms of our mobile advisor platform now, to provide the ability to either have just a home interaction or to be able to provide a combination of both branch-based advice as well as being able to continue that conversation at home or on mobile. Are they going to be disappointed that they don't talk to a human being in person in branch? But actually, no. I think much of the feedback we have had so far is the fact that customers absolutely love the idea that they're going to be using this level of technology. It's different, it's innovative, and it guarantees them the outcome that they wanted in the first place. And I think that's one of the key differences. To move on to social, I mean, we're seeing it move quite rapidly into the mobile environment. Absolutely, why wouldn't you start incorporating this into the social environment as well? Obviously, you've got a very different sort of process. I think if it's moving onto the mobile channel, you're then going to start seeing it move into the social channel as well. And that really is part of our overall omni-channel strategy, is to make sure that it's any interaction for any customer, anywhere, across any device.
Nationwide Now was very cool. After only a few minutes, it was like speaking to a real person.
So we've been blown away. So I'm the COO of a business. In some ways I'm paid to be cynical. And I was concerned that customers would find it impersonal. Couldn't be further from the truth. What we've seen is that customers have really liked the fact that they're still welcomed by a colleague in the branch, they're still given a cup of tea, they're still given the friendly welcome. But actually what they perceive, and in many respects is true, is that by virtue of the fact that we're being able to build real expertise centrally, that what they're then getting is advice from experts who can constantly be focused upon single product domains or single areas. So what members are saying to us is they're getting the best of both worlds. They're getting the physical environment, they're getting the fantastic people in our branch environment, and they're getting the real sense of expert advice that comes with it. And they're also loving the technology because it feels like you're in the room together. You know, gone are the days where pictures are juddering and you're needing to worry about whether or not they can stream correctly. This feels as though you're having a really personal relationship, just as you and I are doing now. It just happens that you're hundreds of miles apart. As you imagine, through testing, we've done lots of filming of this and we've sat and observed. And what you see is customers and members getting really engrossed in the personal relationship, leaning in the way that you would do in any personal conversation. There was an example at the end where somebody went up to shake their hand. It was very funny. Funny for them as well as for us. Nationwide Now, in terms of video communication, would be useless if you can't integrate your online diary, and if you can't integrate your remote print, and if you can't integrate relationships between your central advisors and people in the branch network. And you need all of those things to work together. Because the magic of the service is the member can book their appointment online or they can book it over the phone. That appointment scheduling system will allocate them both the branch they want to go to at the right time, but also access to the advisor centrally with the right level of skill. When they turn up in the branch will already be aware that the member's coming in, so they can have set up for them all of the necessary paperwork, of which there's very little given it's an online service. But they can give you a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, talk to you about what's going on that day, but also introduce you to other members of the colleagues and staff within the branch environment. They will then take the responsibility to introduce you to the advisor, who of course is operating remotely, and they go from there. But of course the great thing is then at the end, once the advice service is complete, you can print any necessary documentation locally in the branch. The branch teams can help the member complete that transaction, and therefore actually, despite the fact that it's a remote relationship, it's completed on a one and done basis.
One of the areas that makes Nationwide Now so effective is the partnership between technology and people, an area often forgotten.
The most important way that we're going to be able to improve customer experience is through our people. Great people, great engaged individuals provide a great customer experience to our customers. So my advice would be keep the focus on the customers, but focus also on your employees, both the front line who understand what the customer issues are. To a certain extent, we don't even need to ask the customers. Ask our front line. They know what the problems are because they're dealing with them on a day-to-day basis. Make sure that we give our people a voice as well as our customers, because those are the individuals that firstly understand what the issues are, but they are going to be the key individuals to improve the customer experience on behalf of our customer base. There's so much research that demonstrates that engaged individuals drive engaged customers, which drives sustainable profit for an organisation. Let's look after our people. Let's make sure that we give them a voice. And let's make sure that particularly the frontline employees have the opportunity to advise the rest of us who aren't dealing with customers on a day-to-day basis, that they are able to communicate what it feels like to be working at the front line and really understanding what our customers think and feel. That's what's going to drive improvement across the organisation and help us all to that holy grail about being customer-centric throughout the organisation as a whole.
We've seen instances where you have delivered the most ultimate up-to-date technology and it just hasn't worked because two things: the people in the organisation aren't able to adapt to that technology, and B, they're just not that sort of interpersonal, interactive type of mode. And I think to use technology properly, you've got to have the right skill sets and the right type of personalities utilising it to be able to get the message across accordingly to your customers. And I think it all comes down to having a very different culture within the organisations. And that's one of the things we drive home very, very hard, is if you're going to start utilising these types of digital interaction, you've got to have the right level of capability and skill sets behind the actual customer advice or the agents themselves. So one of the other factors, obviously, when we now approach customers with this new digital technology is how we would actually help them adopt it internally. And that's one of the key factors. Yeah, there's a process change, but there's also a culture change. So our advanced services teams will actually sit there and actually take users through how they would actually technically use this within their job role and job functions. It's one of the most critical aspects. In fact, I see the technology as almost being transparent. Is what we're actually enabling is the totally different interaction with customers going forward. And that's one of the key things in terms of how we see the success factors of this technology actually being able to impact customers in a positive format.
While speaking with BBVA, we looked at their flagship branch with Mark Jameson.
So what you'll find is that BBVA has invested heavily in all of the channels, and in particular the branches, such as the one we're sitting in, has a bunch of new technologies with self-serve capabilities, with privacy built into the physical environment. So while this may not be scaled to every branch around the world, what you'll find is that we use a test and learn environment, and we'll take the things that work and we will scale those things. We really think that the financial services industry is at this inflection point, and it is going to be transformed over the next 5 years because of technology. Our chairman, Francisco Gonzalez, talks very openly about what he calls the banking industry becoming the banking, information, and technology industry. And actually the term that he often uses is called knowledge banking. So if you think of all the different iterations of knowledge, it means that banks have data that they can turn into information that then can be used as knowledge to help customers and for customers to have better knowledge about what's the right thing for them. So at the end of the day, technology, the combination of technology and people will come together in a way that will make banking so much more than what a traditional bank has been.
So how does this fit into an omni-channel approach?
So when it comes down to talking omni-channel, our view on omni-channel is effectively being able to provide a rich media video service to any customer, anywhere, across any device. And that also can encompass how you transact and interact internally as well. So for us, it's being able to provide the level of added service to the branch infrastructure whereby you can start allowing advisors from anywhere within your organization to talk to any customer in any branch. So the age-old issue where you might have customers not being able to get the level of advice for a new mortgage, for instance, you can now totally circumvent any issues around that one by making sure that you have the customer talk to that advisor irrespective of what location they're in, across a high-definition video interaction, which is almost like a lifelike experience. But in addition to that, it's not just about the fact that we can provide the level of interaction. The more important aspect is that you can then fulfill the full transaction in this new virtual environment.
So how do you assess people's reactions to this technology?
So in terms of market research, we do a few things, some of which is very traditional. So how do you get panels in? How do you ask them to explore that? But two of the things that we've exploited most is, one, how do we invite members into our innovation space so that they can help shape what that looks like, and we will do the same in our store design over time. But secondly, we have one of the, if not the, widest online member panels. So we have over 5,000 members at any one time who are invited into an online conversation. They register to do so, so it demonstrates they want to participate in that debate. And then we can take them into segments and say, talk to us about the services that you value, dependent on how we as an organisation deliver them. And what we've seen through that panel is that more and more and more members have started to stop thinking about this is a route through to advise and guide, but started to think about it being a route through to really shape an organisation that they're the owners of. It's been fantastic to see, but is another really good example of seeing technology bring people together rather than push them apart.
When we talk about feedback systems, obviously we're capturing feedback from customers, but that information only really becomes useful when we link it to other business data, so the financial data and the operational data from the business. Customers are coming to organisations using many different channels now, and they expect organisations to have a joined up view of them across those channels, so going into branch versus calling into the call centre versus being online. And I think from a feedback perspective, it's really important that organisations are able to capture their customers' feedback across all of those channels as well. So it's not good enough anymore just to be able to capture feedback through an online email survey, nor is it good enough just to be able to capture feedback through the IVR system, post a call into the call centre. We really need to understand how our customers come to our organisation, how they want to communicate with us, and then enable them to provide feedback across all those many channels.
On the next episode of Future Banking, we look at what it would take to make the ultimate contact centre. We head out to South Africa to look at some of the offshored offerings, while back in the UK, we look at some of the technology.